In this lesson, we're going to look at the function test. Our objectives: understand what a function is, understand how to test if a table is a function, and understand how to test if a graph is a function. Vocabulary. Function. Each input has only one output. Basically, I put a number in, I can only get one answer out of the problem. So if I put a 2 in, I'm only going to get one answer. And if somebody else uses the same problem and puts a 2 in, they'll get the same answer that I did. Vertical line test. Method to test whether a graph is a function. First, we're going to look at tables. So I have 4 examples here. In these tables, we're going to do what I call the pop machine test. So when we go to a pop machine, if we push a button, we expect to get the pop that the button says. Well, what that means in our tables is when we push a x value, always think of our inputs as our x, or our inputs as our buttons. If we push a button, it doesn't matter how many times we push it, we should always get the same result. If we push a Mountain Dew button, we always expect a Mountain Dew. If we push the number -2, we always expect the same result in that table. So here we look at the first one. We push a -2, we get a -3. We didn't push any of the buttons more than once. So since we only pushed each button once, that automatically means that we got the same answer every time. This is a function. Okay, let's look at this one. So here, our x's are our buttons. We push a 4, a 1, a 0, a 1. Okay, we pushed the 1 twice. So this is important because we touched the 1's twice. When we hit a 1 the first time, we got a -1. Okay? That means for this to be a function, when we hit a 1 the second time, we have to get a -1 again. We hit a 1 the second time, we get a +1. So we got 2 different pops from the same button, if you want to think of it that way. And since we got 2 different pops from the same button, that is not a function. Okay? There's also the button 4, which gave us -2, and the button 4, which gave us +2. Again, 2 different pops from the same button. That's not a function. If we had this as a pop machine, it wouldn't be working properly. Okay, let's look at the third table here. So -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We hit every button once only, so it's got to be a function because nothing repeated. Okay, let's look at our last table here. So -1, -2, 1, 1. Okay, we have that and that. We repeated a button, 1 and 1. So when we hit 1 the first time, we get -1. When we hit 1 the second time, we get -3. So we got 2 different pops from the same button. That's not a function. The vertical line test is another method for the function test. And what this does is it allows us to look at a graph, use a vertical line, so basically just take a pencil or a straight edge and turn it vertical, and you can use it like a line. And what we're looking for is any time that our vertical line touches our graph in more than one spot. So if our vertical line is touching it in more than one spot, that's not a function. So notice here, as I drop my vertical line, it only touches right at one spot. And anywhere I put this, it touches in only one spot. So this first one here is a function. Let's go down to the second one here. So I drop my vertical line on it, touches it in one spot, one, one. So it never touches it in more than one spot. So this is a function. Let's look at our third one here. If I drop my vertical line here, notice, this is hard to see, notice that it is touching it in two spots. So if I draw a vertical line to represent this, notice how it touches in two spots. What we have is this as our input, so this spot right here is our input, and from this input we have two outputs because our outputs are our y values. So this is not a function. An even easier one to see is an inequality. Notice how we have this shaded region. Well, if you remember from inequalities, shaded regions are answers. So when we drop this vertical line here, every spot in that shade, so all of this right here, is an answer. So we're obviously hitting it in thousands of spots. That's not a function. Now the question is, how do we deal with statements such as equations and inequalities? Well, the easiest way that I can think of to figure out whether these are functions or not is to graph them. Once we have the graph, we can use the vertical line test, which is very simple, to see whether it's touching in more than one spot or not. So we would graph this right here and see whether it's a function. Graph this, and graph this. In fact, these graphs were the same as what we had on the previous vertical line test. So this is the line, it is a function. This was our kind of J curve, this was a function. This was our sideways U, not a function, and this was our inequality, which is not a function. If there's any part of this that you didn't understand or you need to rewatch, please pause, rewind, rewatch. Bring any questions to class. Thank you.